Hello again. I'll warrant that most viewers will not have heard of the expression backlands in the whole course of their life, and yet it is a concept which is fast bringing about the decline of that most English of phenomena, the back garden. There is something quintessentially English about those carefully tended little plots of land at the front and back of people's houses. They are an attempt on a miniature scale to recreate the grand estates which once surrounded castles and country homes. The very idea of the lawn on which the English lavished such care was to show that the owner of an area around the building where he lived was wealthy enough that he didn't need to use it for growing crops or grazing livestock. It was a show-off stunt to distinguish people from the peasants who had to grub a living how they could from every spare scrap of land. Instead of crops to eat, the rich man could grow flowers around his lawn simply to admire. This was status. This set him apart from the common herd. In Victorian times, this habit spread to everybody who wished to demonstrate that he was a little more well-to-do than average. By cultivating a useless little tract which stretched for 20 yards or so behind his house, every clerk in the suburbs could feel like a lord of the manor. Everything went well enough as long as the growth in population in Britain remained steady and unremarkable. Only a few houses were needed here and there from time to time, and they could be built on the edge of cities, on spare fields or the sites of old airfields left over from the war. Here is a single figure which will show viewers at once how and when things changed dramatically for the worse. Between 1975, the year that Britain voted to join the common market, and 1997, when Tony Blair was voted in, the total number of migrants to Britain was just 153,000. That is 153,000 not in 1 year, but over the course of 22 years. In the next 22 years, from 1997 to 2019, the total number of migrants was 4.9 million. You see the problem there. All those millions of people don't want to live scattered across the country in villages in the Cotswolds or remote hamlets in Wales. They want to live in big cities like London, Birmingham and Manchester. The only thing is there aren't enough houses. The answer is simple, and that is where backlands development comes in. We all know that front gardens are vanishing by the day, paved over to make room for cars. People these days lead such busy lives, they don't have time anyway to be trimming hedges or mowing lawns at the front of their house. Many houses now in big cities are being bought by some of those millions of people from Romania and Bulgaria and so on. A lot of these new citizens are, not to put too fine a point on it, peasants who cannot imagine why anybody would wish to tend a patch of land which has no purpose that they can see. They honestly don't get the idea of mowing the lawn on a Sunday afternoon and planting lobelia and geraniums around a rectangle of grass no bigger than the living room. Where's the sense in that? Land is a resource, not a plaything. So it is that they wish to do one of two things. Sometimes they erect a large single-storey building covering half the garden, a glorified shed for which planning permission is not required, and then they either use it as an extra bedroom or rent it out to other foreigners who need somewhere to live. If they do that, then they often pave over the remaining part of the garden because they don't want to be bothered with cutting grass or watering plants. Failing that, they will apply for planning permission to build a proper house on the back garden, which they will then sell. This is what is known as backlands development, sometimes also known as intensification or garden grabbing. I give a link to a little piece about this in the description to the video above. The sad thing is, of course, that once those back gardens have gone, they've gone for good. This is unfortunate because those of us who grew up in a country with neatly tended gardens know how pleasant it makes a neighbourhood. That front gardens are vanishing is regrettable, but to see the end of the back garden too is to me little short of tragic. I know that in the grand scheme of things there are far more important things to worry about than the loss of those absurd little patches which one sees when travelling past houses by train, but it symbolises a way of life, the English way of life. And now it's draining away before our eyes. I will be the first to concede that there are certainly worse aspects of mass migration in this country to be concerned about, but this is one which touches me, probably because I am myself a keen gardener. The changes which are happening to Britain now are not some passing trend, they are permanent. A way of life which has built up slowly and steadily over 1,000 years or so is being demolished within a few brief years. The pace of change is accelerating, and every year now it is possible to see the ill effects of unrestrained immigration on our cities. No wonder many English people are abandoning the cities and even the suburbs, moving out into the surrounding countryside. This is of course known as white flight. It's not a desirable state of affairs, but all too understandable. What parent with young children would wish to send them to one of London's inner city schools these days? What pensioner would wish to spend the remaining days of his or her life in what is often like a foreign country? This is the way that England is disappearing before our very eyes, and what the bombs of the Luftwaffe could not accomplish is being managed at a slower rate and in a more peaceful fashion. The end result will be the same though, the loss of our country.